I actually had a whole line of questioning on something, but something Ms. Castor just said, I may ask all five of you this question because I think it's fairly important. You just said there's no indefinite retention on AI, and we're not going to exclude that, correct? Chairwoman Khan?
Under COPPA,
Yeah.
so for certain entities in certain contexts.
So my question is once information is generated into AI, how is it not retained permanently?
So you mean basically how can you require unlearning from the model?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. As far as we know, it's not possible, and that's why timely action is incredibly important, and making sure firms are not in the first instance able to use unlawfully collected data to train their AI. It also, your point raises another issue, which is business could face an incentive to actually play fast and loose with the rules because their monetary gain from that and the value they'll generate from training their AI could be so important. And so for all of these reasons, kind of stronger rules of the road are going to be critical.
I'm going to ask the two new commissioners one at a time their thoughts on this, because I think this is the next big conversation. Anybody's heard me talk about this, whether it's government related, Fourth Amendment related, privately related. If you have a 16-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old son, privacy in the 21st century is going to be the conversation we have and how we monetize all of these things. So what tools do you need from us?
Well, and to your question on what do you do once that data is captured, it's an interesting question. I'd say, these emerging technologies, we don't fully understand exactly what they're capable of, but I think what's interesting is I think there'll be more technologies that may help us in terms of fighting some of these issues. The FTC's work on the voice cloning challenge is a great example of where we're concerned about voice cloning, the use of AI, where you have fraudsters calling up grandmas and saying this is your grandson using a voice clone, and worried about that. So the agency, we just had a voice cloning challenge where we had companies come in and say, what can we do to fight this? And they provided different technologies that could help assess that. And I think the same is possible with these types of issues where you're going to have, we're going to see these types of problems arise in the markets. I think we'll also see solutions arise too. And I think we can let the markets develop and understand where those with constantly assessing where the markets are, remaining vigilant, using the tools that we have to address the concerns that they have when there are unfair and deceptive trade practices and or if there's competition issues as well.
And I know when we talked coming in, we talked about the Ticket Act, and one of the things that concerns me about AI is somehow it's the enforcement, right? If you use 5 other songs to create a song, you have to pay royalties for it. We all know if you don't, you get sued, and if you can prove it, you end up losing on a royalty case. There's famous ones. My concern is we don't know the 5 inputs, and there's this fight between open source and non-open source. And so I don't want to live in a world where every musician is created by AI. I don't think you get Nirvana in 1991 off of Motley Crue in 1987. I think AI is pretty smart. I don't think it's smart enough to do that. I also think by the time we get around to regulating it or legislating on it in a meaningful way, the technology is going to be so far past us that there's very few times, and I can say that up here because the Music Modernization Act became law before I got here, and it's actually worked. It's not perfect in the new environment, but it was originally started to be written under Napster and LimeWire and all of those things, and it still exists. But, what different enforcement challenges do you see moving forward in this space, Mr. Ferguson?
So the Commission's got its suite of statutes that it enforces, and most of them are relatively old, and they're very old compared to AI. And the stuff that you're talking about involve these massive trade-offs between promoting the innovation. Look, AI will be a super important tool for new challengers to come and challenge big tech incumbency. And we don't want regulators sort of strangling that in the cradle early on. At the same time, tremendous risks are associated with AI. But these are huge political, sort of national economic trade-offs that Congress needs to make afresh. It can't be that the agencies take these statutes from the 1910s and 1930s and tries to sort of fit AI into that system. Congress has to tell us, or whichever agencies they're going to empower to do this enforcing, how to do these trade-offs.
Well, and I think one of the first questions we have to answer, which is really actually hard, is how do we define open source? Open source is very different now than it was 5 years ago. I mean, if you can get a song online and feed it into an AI generator, I can't play that song at my business without paying royalties. But once I put it into an AI generator, I don't know. And I mean, so I understand the regulatory side of it. I'm very concerned about how we actually, you all do it and we do it, how you actually figure out a mechanism to enforce it. Because stealing something and making something not original your own is, I mean, we have the rules in place. We just I don't know if I think we're massively inadequately prepared to enforce it. And with that, I yield back.
Okay. All right, now